Welcome back to Strive TV. It's been 4, maybe 5 months now since myself and Pali were able to sit down and have a conversation. A lot has changed since then because the last time we spoke, it was the budget announcement. And a lot has changed since then. So today, looking forward to going through a couple of different things. We're going to be going through... Well, let's just go through it all. So we're going to be going through a few key things that our clients ask us about a lot. So especially when setting up companies, things like regional management solutions and where place of effective management is seen on a company, especially for those entrepreneurs that are setting up businesses in the UAE or branches of their business, but are still themselves either residing in the UK or any other country outside of the UAE. Super important point.
Yeah.
We're going to go into a little bit around Abu Dhabi and the opportunities that Abu Dhabi free zones now offer our clients as well, especially clients that are in the tech space, as well as clients who are looking to bring on investors, even if you're not in the tech space. Really interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
And then got a whole little update on crypto, what's happening with the crypto space in the UAE. And then also, just to finish off, the spring statement was done 2 days ago. Quite a few interesting updates from that. I've made some notes on that as well. And
Awesome.
I think, do you know what? Why don't we start with that?
Okay, well, sure. So for those that aren't aware, the spring statement isn't a budget as such, but it's sort of perceived to be almost like a micro mini budget as well. So you don't get the chance of standing outside the front door on Downing Street with that red case or none, with this one. But there were some stark statistics, and I think some worrying statistics came out from this. Now, first of all, we have to remember that there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets because since the Donald Trump came into power in the US, he's talking about tariffs on different types of goods, which could obviously change the level of exports, imports, across the world, and that can shift markets quite severely. So at the moment, a lot of that hasn't really settled down yet. So there's an element of that. But, some of the cutbacks, there were some severe welfare cutbacks, like stuff like disability allowances and things like this, which is very un-Labour-like. And but that's really surprised people on the sort of cutbacks being made by Labour. That aside, obviously we're here to focus on the UAE and why we believe the UAE is a great place to set up your business and yourself. So if we do a few comparisons, I'm sure you've got some on hand as well. I hope we haven't got the same down here. But, the Office of Budget Responsibility, the OBR, had to revise the economy's growth forecast from 2% down to 1%. So it was 2%. It was projected to be 2% when the budget came out, I think November last year. And now it's already been slashed by half and down to 1%. That didn't take long to happen. But then at the same time, the growth forecast for the following year is still 1.9%. So it just feels that these numbers are coming up fiction. Where do they get these forecasts from? And how can they be so wildly wrong, right? So it's crazy. But and I don't know if you've got the Dubai stats on hand on forecast growth, but it's
Forecast
very different.
growth is 5x of what the now updated number in the UK is. So Dubai is actually 5.1%.
Is the forecasted growth, right?
Which is huge.
That's a big difference. So, you may just want to go to Dubai to focus on targeting that local market and that region with your products.
Yeah, exactly that.
Well,
it's just the numbers kind of show where that growth is heading, right? So you can either stay in an economy where growth is halved all of a sudden, and expect it to stay that way for the rest of this year at least, or you can go to an economy where you can anticipate a 5x market growth, which should then transfer to yourself if you have the right product and service and ability to capture the market as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's been super interesting is I did a bit of reading around this and just looking at where the government is looking to make cuts here. So maybe the point to focus on here is like what's actually happening in the UK, right? Welfare benefits, you mentioned, they're going to be cut. So they're going to be cut by 4.8 billion. Okay. So what does that actually mean? Well, if you look at people who require the disability benefits, so PIP, and people who are genuinely in need of things like universal credit, it's now going to be much harder for people who've never applied for it beforehand, but now find themselves in the circumstances where it's a requirement. It's going to be harder for them to apply. If they then do get accepted, they're going to get less than what people who have previously been on it will be receiving. That's the first thing, right?
Wow.
Second thing is people who have already been on it and have genuinely needed it are now going to get reviewed and have their potential allowances cut or taken away. So that's one way that they are saving money. Okay. The second thing is the government department budgets itself. So you already mentioned the UK government at the moment currently spends less on education than it does on interest payments externally to money that is owed.
Yes.
And they're consistently borrowing more, right? But if the government department budgets are reduced, and they're planning to be reduced by 3.6 billion, then that means less funding for schools, which is already lower.
Yeah.
Less funding for hospitals, less funding for NHS overall, less funding for local councils. Now, this is interesting because I know I have friends who do social housing. So they purely invest in property to be able to provide housing for people who are in desperate need.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is for those people who are against property investing, etc. It's one way of looking at it in terms of how it could do good.
Yeah.
That requires councils to have a budget.
Yes.
They've already been told by councils, especially in the north of the UK, so Nottingham, places like Birmingham, where some of those local councils have turned back to those landlords and said, we don't have money to pay you anymore.
Wow. Hasn't Birmingham filed for bankruptcy or something?
Yeah.
Well, last year this was in the news, but haven't really followed it since. 2000.
I think there was also a council up in Nottingham. I can't remember which one, but that also filed for bankruptcy too.
Yeah, I think it was about 7 or 8. You know, councils. Yeah, I mean, it's a precarious situation in the UK, and I think generally we're not economists, right? And we're not accountants either. We're just commentators at the end of the day, and we have our own interpretation of it all. And I suppose, you know, we're trying to advocate for entrepreneurial spirit and entrepreneurship. So, and you know, we're very passionate about supporting entrepreneurship. So, when you look at sort of the cards that you're dealt with at the moment in the UK, it doesn't sort of make too much sense if you're an ambitious entrepreneur to base your business in the UK anymore, unless it's a very physical product or service that you need to deliver. It doesn't work, you know, very well anymore.
It goes to that. I don't know if you remember the old meme that you used to get, and it's an old saying as well. You're not a tree, you can move. and this applies to everything here. And I think the other thing that we're really advocates for is not just entrepreneurship, but also people who are in business are not all of them are the cleverest. I don't think I'm the cleverest person in the world. There are some business people who are extremely smart, but the consistency around business people is that they know how to spot an opportunity, and they also then are very aware when opportunities don't look as appealing anymore. So they are probably the first people to take notice of when something doesn't smell right, when it's negatively impacting them and their immediate circumstances and family or their personal circumstances. And off the back of that, they will move. They will change things because a business person is built to change. They are built to adapt because a business is probably the hardest thing someone could do. And it requires someone's ability to be adaptable and changeable to everything day to day, let alone the economy.
Yeah.
Right. And then this goes back on to what happened last year, which is what's being dubbed as the Millionaire Exodus.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So 10,600 millionaires left the UK last year, which was 1 millionaire every 45 minutes on average.
Yes.
Okay. Millionaire every 45 minutes. Not all of those millionaires will be business owners, but the ones that were business owners, if they moved, the chances are a lot of them took their business with them.
Of course.
Which means those jobs went with them. Which means that the earning capacity of those people went with them. Which means that now there's more people that are going to be applying for welfare benefits. But the welfare benefits have just been cut back and they've also been made harder to apply for. How do you end the cycle?
There's more pressure. It's interesting, isn't it, Dipesh, that we've actually got our business obviously set up in Dubai because we sell Dubai. but we're actually recruiting some people under it in the UK. Yeah. It's almost going the other way around at the moment. And that goes to show that when you do have some economic freedom, you can actually create, jobs anywhere in the world. And we happen to recruit people in the UK under that company because that's the profile we need for our business to be as efficient and as productive as possible as well. So, there's it's very, very, it's not, obviously not a great sample size, but there's a small example, right, of how economic freedom, more economic freedom for entrepreneurs can help with job creation. Not only job creation, like really good quality jobs potentially as well, at the same time that pay well as well at the same time. But but let's go back to like Dubai. Clearly Dubai's still outperforming Europe, especially the UK, very, very quickly. I mean, if for the next 5 years the average growth rate for the UK is say 1.5%, and Dubai stays at around 5%, I mean, what's the sum difference of that, right? You're talking about a huge gap, right, in growth, and that's why the UAE is so popular. Like we're inundated right now. We're recruiting quite heavily to service all the demand we're getting at the same sort of time. But there you go. Then I suppose what more can you say right now?
I think the other thing to just look at as well, especially in light of the statement that came out a couple of days ago, one of the biggest appeals about the UAE is the fact that income tax is still 0%. Okay, now what it is being made to sound like is that people are now going to be earning more in the UK because of the national living wage increase. That's how they're positioning it. But the national living wage being increased, although it's gross payments for people with the lowest level of income, saying that they're going to end up with £1,400 more per year on average, you're not really, because all of that income is going to be taxed. If you were genuinely going to be working for the people, then you would have raised the tax-free allowance on your salary, not the national living wage.
It sounds like we're going back on some of the talking points from our last one we did.
And it's just being further reinforced. Yeah. And I can so understand and sympathize with all the people that we speak to on a daily basis, every single one of our clients, who are fed up of having to pay so much for what feels like receiving so little. And it's not that difficult to see why they're then moving across to places like Dubai, right? Yeah. And going back to your point, we're hiring people in the UK. If tax felt fair, I don't think people would have an issue paying it, because they don't. Dubai has taxes. Yeah. So Dubai is not free of tax completely. It has VAT. VAT's 5%. It has corporation tax. Corporation tax is 9%. But even if you look at the structure of that corporation tax, think about how fairly they've done it, where 9% of your corporation tax on your net profits will be paid on the difference above a tax-free allowance of 375,000 dirhams.
Correct. And so for those that don't know, that's around £80,000
exactly.
sterling. Yeah,
exactly.
Or $100,000.
And for the next couple of years, until this comes under review, you've also got small business relief. So if your business is doing less than 3 million dirhams a year in revenue, which is about 630k a year.
Sterling,
no corporation tax. So, they are incentivizing businesses to do well. They're incentivizing businesses to reinvest in themselves, reinvest in growth, reinvest in staff, reinvest in marketing, in product. Like, it doesn't matter what, you've got spare cash.
It's so interesting. Like I just touched on the fact that how Dubai companies employing people in the UK, or contracting them anyway for now, just at this point, but they're still working full time for us. But look at how, because we've grown so fast and we're growing so quickly, look how many extra jobs we've created in Dubai for people. And a lot of those guys came from lower income sort of backgrounds as well. And it goes to show that economic freedom and having more scope to reinvest in your business can help create, more successful jobs. We actually gave we gave pay rises in January to pretty much nearly every member of our staff, definitely people that had been there for over a year.
Yeah.
We were able to give them pay rises of around, the average pay rise we gave everybody was 25%.
Which is massive.
Yeah. Also, we're a nice company.
Yeah.
So, not everyone can do that.
Typical.
Yeah, not your typical, but still, we did it with confidence. You know, we did it with confidence. You know, that we had that scope to be able to do it, you know, as well, which was great. And if you had the equivalent business set up in the UK, let's say Strive was now a UK company selling the same product, so our go-to-market strategy, etc., everything was all identical, but we had to work within the framework of the tax policies of the UK. That wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have been able to do that.
But I mean,
we would never have been able to recruit as many talented individuals or be able to reward them as well as we've been able to in Dubai as well.
And isn't that evident in what most companies will offer as a pay rise when you get the letter that says, you know, you're getting a 1.3% pay rise or a 1.9% pay rise? It almost feels like a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, it's a slap in the face. It was so funny. I was talking to my son's wife the other day. She's a pharmacist. And I was asking her how much she gets paid now. And it's the same as what she got paid basically 15 years ago. And in that time, inflation has kicked in. Things have got a lot more expensive. But her salary has only gone up like a minuscule amount. And, you know, it goes to show that, you know, it goes to show that the economy is changing. Jobs, the profile of people being recruited is changing. And, you know, the digital economy has created more jobs offshore as well. But it also shows that the more you tax business owners and entrepreneurs, the less scope they've got to give better rises and better remuneration to staff, right? As well, they're
Definitely.
squeezed at the same time. So yeah, it's a vicious cycle, and at the moment it feels like these sort of welfare cuts that the government announced a couple of days ago are there just to plug the gaps. And it's like there's a leak going on there, we need to stop that. There's a leak going there, we need to stop that. Rather than money being used for real investment, it's being used to sort of plug the gaps and stuff. And I think over here in the UK, it's got into a situation where they're having to find money to almost as a rescue package in some ways, than it is really to stimulate growth through more flexibility for entrepreneurs to set up businesses here, more investment in better education, and less cutbacks. And you know, there's less investment going into police and people and safety, especially when you're a family, is always one of the number one priorities for our clients when they ask about moving over to Dubai, because they're concerned about, you know, the safety for their family and especially the kids.
I completely agree. I was actually speaking to a client yesterday who's considering moving with his entire family. Now, obviously, he's a dad, so he's got himself, his wife, and he's got 4 children. And he was talking about the fact that his kids have specific needs around special education requirements within schools. And that was a really interesting conversation, because obviously we know what the situation is with schooling in the UK and the fact that budget's being cut. I know a family member who's a teacher in a school around the corner from here, where they have one book between 3 kids in an English class, right? How do you expect kids to learn from there? It's tough, right? And yet in the UAE, everything's private. So obviously you're paying for your education, but your classroom size is much smaller, which means the attention to students is much greater from teachers. Secondly, you've got, for children who have special education needs, the Department of Education enforces a standard school to be able to cater for a special education needs child as well. And now you don't have that solution where kids have to go to specific separate areas or schools to be able to learn. And it also allows them, and this is what's really interesting, it almost allows them to socialize in a way differently to how they would feel maybe separated here. And you know, it's a conversation that I'm looking at in more depth now myself, because got a little one, 6 weeks old.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, little one, 6 weeks old, and I'm thinking about all these things for ourselves as well, moving forward. Do we want to go into traditional education now that there's location freedom? What if we just did homeschooling, and you know, we traveled a lot of the world in different countries at the same time instead? There's all these options, which when people start looking at them and start questioning, you realize how viable they actually could be. And I think this is the same thing going on with just business in general. People have options. They're going to look at where it's most efficient for them, and they're going to take it.
I mean, just touching on schooling, you know, even though schooling is, state schools are free here, you're still paying for it through your taxes.
Of course.
Right? And the interest that's going out that the government's paying on the borrowings that is done, you still, that some of that was used to invest in education. So you are actually sort of indirectly paying for education through your taxes, right? So, when you go to a place like Dubai, there's no income tax, and you do have to pay for schools, but you sort of were in the first place. So, what's really the difference there? And so that's the way to look at it. Sometimes the way you look at things needs, your belief system has to sort of update itself. You have to sort of, look through the clutter. And when you do that, then you realize it's actually fairly economically viable to send your kids to a private school in a place like Dubai and benefit from the areas that you've just mentioned as well. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Strive. So
let's get onto something positive.
So Strive, Strive's in its full swing, second year, full time. Everything has been running all barrels going, full steam ahead. What's been happening over the last 4 to 6 months from a company standpoint? How's it been growing? How's it been looking?
Yeah, I mean, the last sort of 4 months or so, especially since the start of the year, have been phenomenal. We've hit some record numbers in terms of number of individuals we've helped establish themselves in Dubai and the UAE on the whole. Even Abu Dhabi now, we're doing quite a lot there. Team has grown. I think we've added another, sort of probably another 40% in terms of on our staff headcount. In different departments, just to help support our clients as best as we can, and because obviously Strive's one of its core values is service is everything. Everything has to be about the best in class service. So that's been great, and we're creating some really, really exciting partnerships as well. So we've created partnerships with a law firm. I'll mention them, called Founders Law, so go check them out. We'll put the link in the description so you can go check them out. So they're now, for example, supporting our clients with a standard legal deck, a legal pack for service agreements, website terms and conditions, privacy policies, things like this. We're also we're going to be launching actually next week, or the week after or so, our own sort of digital package. So when clients come through to us, they can get a very simple five-page website, which is in English and Arabic. It's got all the T's and C's already on there. We set you up with your email address, your local.ae domain name, and this can really help when you're applying for your business bank account and trying to, and the bank is sort of trying to profile your business. So, that's coming out really soon as well. Another couple of other exciting ones, and I'm sure you're gonna love this, is property related. We had to do something on the property front because it's the talk of the town when it comes to Dubai. So we're creating this really interesting partnership. I can't really say who they are yet because we haven't signed the final agreement, but we're going to be partnering up with a prominent property company that's based in the UK and has offices in Dubai. So anyone interested in investing or purchasing a property, they can meet them here in the UK in person in their offices, whilst also then being taken to viewings and neighbourhoods when they get to Dubai as well. So that's going to be a really exciting partnership we're going to be launching soon. What else was there? One final one.
Yep.
Sorry, I nearly forgot. And we're also creating a partnership with an FX company. So if we all know that when you transfer money overseas from your traditional bank account, that they hit you hard on rates, on the exchange rate and on fees. So we're trying to educate clients on the importance of using maybe an FX house, like a currency house. They get the best rates when it comes to currency, and they're regulated as well, so it's all protecting your funds are protected under the deposit protection scheme in the UK. And so when you want to say, for example, buy a property, you got quite a large sum going out, or if you want to fund your business, you got quite a large sum going out. So we're now working with them to encourage clients to save even more, not just on the tax side, but even generally to work with them as well. And they can also do regulated crypto onboarding as well. So if you want to convert, say, your pounds to USDT, they can also do that for you as well, and it's all fully regulated through them at the same time.
Super exciting stuff.
Really exciting, yeah.
And we acquired a firm.
Oh yes, that was probably the biggest news. I should have started with that. A couple of months ago, we acquired another sort of company formation outfit, and that was very exciting. It was our first acquisition. hopefully not the last. We have got some other conversations going, but I think we're seeing that Strive's sort of service levels plus its investment in technology in its operational sort of systems is really benefiting the scalability of our company. And by acquiring, Salis, plugging their clients into our framework has already made them feel so much happier with like the deliverability and the service levels straight away, because with our space it's quite admin heavy, and so if you don't adopt the right technology, you end up throwing a lot of human capital at solving all these problems all the time, which becomes disorganized, hard to maintain high service levels, and the communication becomes inconsistent. So, this is why we're excited about looking at further opportunities. So, if you're a CSP out there and you're wondering, please do get in touch. Love to talk to you. Maybe there's something that can be done as well there.
Definitely. Well, it's super interesting to see how the last 6 months have gone since we last spoke as well, because a lot of that growth and change, the acquisition, the additions to the team, the pay rises across the team, that's literally just been in the last 4 months. And I think it's just a really strong indication of not just how well we're doing, but how much our clients like what we're doing as well. The way that I see, or the vision that I see for Strive being seen or portrayed in a certain way, is we help our clients make money and save money. That's it. Because that's what we're here to do, right?
Yeah.
And in an economy, in a digital world where people have access to so many things and opportunities, we're here to provide them. And if we can help you, then that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. That's
Good
what
stuff.
we're trying to do.
Right. Let's talk about some. Do you know what? Let's talk about some crypto. I know this is
crypto, huh? Okay.
I know this is one of your favorite topics around. So, talk to me about crypto in Dubai. How is crypto being received in Dubai? Just from like an emotional standpoint, almost.
Yeah, I mean, look, crypto in Dubai. I wouldn't even say this is a recent thing. For the last few years now, we've seen a lot of like the crypto companies, like exchanges, the custodians, etc., setting up entities in Dubai and getting them regulated. Those companies are feeling confident in the legal framework and the structures there, in Dubai. So, there's VARA, which is a Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority, which was established in Dubai maybe around just over a year ago or so. Maybe a bit longer than that, actually, maybe a couple of years, which has given confidence to firms to go set up their crypto projects out there, because they know exactly where they stand from a regulatory standpoint, which has always been the issue in a place like the States, where you launch a project and then the SEC come chasing you later saying, hold on, you can't do that. But there was never any real guidance or any general approval certification that you could have gone through in the first instance. So, that's why I think Dubai is becoming very exciting for crypto. And it has declared itself to want to support crypto-related activity in the country as well. So, generally, in answer to your question, it's being treated very favorably.
Now, let's talk about tax on crypto. Crypto is a very unique asset compared to, obviously, when you're looking at things like income, dividends, etc. What's the situation with tax on crypto at the moment?
It's treated very similarly to other income, personal income in Dubai, where there's zero income tax. So if you say a full-time trader and it's your primary source of income, trading crypto, you don't have to pay any tax on any gains that you make. And if it's more like an investment income where you're not doing so, you're not really actively trading so often, there's no capital gains tax in Dubai. So if you become a let's say, tax resident of your home country, let's say namely UK, and you become a tax resident of Dubai, it's a great place to operate your portfolio from as well. And that's why so many crypto enthusiasts are heading out there. Yeah.
Definitely. We know many who've made significant gains and chosen to take them out there because they can.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense, right?
Exactly.
Now, there's a lot of US crypto exchanges are also available in the UAE. How does that impact someone that's investing quite heavily? Why is that even a benefit to them?
I wouldn't even say US, but you have got like Binance have got a headquarters there now, or an office set up. OKX. There's a few others there as well. Coinbase do accept UAE companies to get a institutional account with them, although probably there's a few more hoops to jump through with those guys. But it shows that, you know, this isn't sort of some sort of dark art. You know, we've set our company up with Binance with an institutional account as well. So it shows that you can even trade under a company's umbrella and protection. So you can ring fence your profits inside a company you could set up, you know, through, you know, like a firm like ourselves, like Strive. And that also lends itself really well if you're like a digital nomad and you like traveling, but you want your place of business residency to be in a crypto friendly and tax friendly environment. So that's why, again, Dubai is emerging as a really popular choice for people in that sort of space. Yeah.
Perfect. So I mean, it's making it easy for people, right? And I think that's the reason why so many people have been taken by Dubai. It's making it easy, it's making it simple, it's very clear. The stuff around VARA, to have those regulations in place before you start something means that you've given yourself the best chance of success. Yeah, because you know what you can do and what you can't do.
Just one thing I do want to mention, you don't have to be regulated if you're trading your personal portfolio or you're trading crypto. That's the company's own asset in a company. This is only really for crypto projects and sort of trading firms that are trading with third-party funds on crypto that need to get regulated. So just to be clear, if you're an individual looking to move out there, you don't have to be regulated to be able to, you know, undertake crypto activities that you're doing for personal gains and stuff like that. Yeah, with personal funds and crypto,
which makes it extremely convenient as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've spoken about digital nomads. We've spoken a little bit about people staying in their home countries with a business entity or interest within the UAE itself as well. So let's talk a little bit about something called place of effective management.
Ooh, this is get into that territory, do you?
It's it's an important one because there's probably a lot of people listening to this who, not through us, who've decided to set up a business in the UAE, and it might be based in the UK, America, in Europe, or anywhere else in the world, and they're running the company from their home country.
Yeah.
If someone is doing that, why is that a problem? Especially, let's talk about it in terms of the UK.
Let's try to put it into like some sort of real world scenario. Let's say, for example, you've got a marketing company or web design agency in the UK, and you decide that you want to, you know, start attacking the market in the UAE or GCC or that region, and for the purposes of doing so, you need to set up a company out there, you know, to be able to trade and target the local population in order to take payments in local currency in a local bank account, which is, you know, let's be frank, operationally you need to do that if you want to have a real business that's going to look like it's the real deal, right? So if you go and do that, and you stay in the UK and you're managing that company from the UK, the place of effective management technically remains the UK, and then you may be obligated to pay UK corporation tax on that entity in Dubai.
Which is huge.
Now, that's an issue because if you're trying to expand a business in Dubai, you may not even be aware of this, and you might be falling into a bit of a trap which you're not aware of. And this is an area that we are trying to highlight more and more to our clients. But obviously, you know, people do need to go get the right tax advice from a qualified tax advisor as well. But, you know, so, you know, we're sort of commentating on our interpretation here. But this is very important for business owners to be aware of.
But then isn't the simple solution to this having something like a nominee director on the company?
No, I wouldn't go there.
Because that's what... So it's really interesting because we have this conversation with clients all day, every day.
Yeah.
And they say, well, surely we can just put a nominee director on that, right?
Yeah. So, you know, this term of nominee director floats around, but it's heavily frowned upon. And, you know, the HMRC, in fact, you know, don't like the concept of shadow directors. There's some wording around this available from them. So it's not as simple as, hey, look, I'll just put Dipesh lives in Dubai, so I'll just make him a nominee director. No, it's not that. The key words here are effective management. Where is the management taking place? So a nominee director is normally a silent director who doesn't do anything. So effective management isn't really moving with that appointment of that nominee. It's remaining in the home country of the initial business owner that set up the business. So yeah, nominee. I think if people are pushing nominee on you, you should be very, very careful with going down that road. Yeah.
So then, this is why I love what obviously we've been able to even put together as a solution for our clients, because what you do need is someone who is effectively managing a company. And I think we're therefore having a local manager in the UAE, so someone who's based within the region, who actually runs board meetings for your company, who records minutes for those meetings, who prepares a quarterly board pack, who shows that actually effective management is in the UAE. That's very different.
Yeah. So, and actually takes action on behalf of the business, which is the most important part of the whole process. So first of all, you have to look at the optics. So, you might have genuine management taking place in the UAE, but if you don't record those events, then a question can be raised by the HMRC. So you don't have any documented evidence of where that those senior decisions and key decisions were happening in the UAE. So it's very important to facilitate meetings, board notes, make sure they're signed when you're in the UAE. So we obviously have a service where we could become your regional managers to help you grow and develop your business, and at the same time we'll also work out your schedule for when you're coming to Dubai, and we'll organize a board meeting where we're sitting around a table discussing company matters, and then we sign those board minutes off locally inside the UAE as well, and then we upload those to a data room whereby there's a really clean dossier as well, so that you could feel a lot more comfortable that you've got very clear evidence on the decision makings of a company, of that business having been done in the UAE and in Dubai most cases as well. So it's not just about the showing of it, it's also about the fact that we can act on behalf of your business to make key decisions in the local area. And this is why Strive isn't just a formations agent, it's more it's a true consultancy, right? We can help you with marketing, we can help you with business development and a whole bunch of stuff for your company out there as well. But this is the board meetings and are very, very important to have in Dubai, just so you don't inadvertently fall into a scenario where you're asked to pay UK corporation tax for your overseas entity in Dubai.
I'm so glad you said it that way as well, because I've had a lot of clients who've asked and said, I've got a friend in Dubai, I could just put them on the company. And I'm like, well, that puts you at probably a lot more risk than you realize, because having a friend that maybe doesn't understand your business, doesn't know your business, doesn't understand the financials. Like, we understand the financials of all of our clients because we're also their accountants out there.
Yeah.
We're taking care of their statutory filings.
Yeah.
We're doing their corporation tax reviews. We're doing their quarterly VAT
Major
returns.
decisions, yeah.
Huge decisions.
Yeah.
We're actually doing those things, so we genuinely know what's happening in the business.
Exactly.
Therefore, when we have a meeting, there's actually substance to that meeting.
Yeah.
We know what to talk about. We know what to discuss.
Yeah.
We know what plans we're looking to move forward and shift with. Having a friend or a family member, it's entirely up to the individual.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm probably more risk averse than I realize, especially when you start looking at like government guidelines and you're like, okay, there's like a million different places I could trip up here.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to have in place, because people don't know and aren't aware of where they might be facing an issue. So I think even from the get-go, having a conversation with people like us who have done the research, who have had the consultations to get the right advice behind this, puts your company at a different, just in a different league.
Yeah,
in terms of operations.
It's also like the fact that what we provide is the operational solution to maintaining those records, so that you don't have to worry about them as well, which takes admin off your plate, gives you more energy to focus on your expansion plans or growth plans in the region. And if you put a mate on, might not always happen. Let's be honest. It's one of the things that it's bottom of your list. You don't really want to have a board meeting. You're probably not going to minute it correctly, and then you're leaving yourself slightly exposed as well. But you talk to probably a lot more potential clients than myself. So let me ask you a question. Like, what are the most common questions people have about, I suppose, this sort of service offering or setup? Like, do they have any concerns about control or losing control? So
absolutely. So I think the number one question is, how many shares do I need to give up to have this person as a manager in Dubai? And the answer to that is none. Right? Because we're not taking a shareholding of our clients' businesses. We are placing a manager on their company within the region. And
like a non-exec director type?
Exactly that. Yeah. So at a non-exec level, someone who can't take a shareholding, can't sell shares of the client's company on their behalf without them knowing and signing off those documents.
Bank access?
Oh, well, no.
Good.
I was doing a calculation.
Okay.
Yeah, I love calculations.
Yeah.
So I was doing a calculation, and what was really interesting was to see how our clients are going to be affected based on the sliding scale of corporation tax that is now being enforced in the UK, right?
Okay.
So we've got 19% up to 250k, and in the UK, for anything above 250k, we're doing 25% corporation tax.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of our clients are hitting the 300, 400, even $500,000 or more in profits.
Yeah.
Okay. The shocking difference is that in the UK, the more profits you have, so the better you do, the more tax you pay. Okay, just let that one sink in.
Usual story.
Usual story.
Yeah.
Okay, same with income tax. The more the better you do, the more tax you pay.
Yeah.
In the UAE, that same business, even if it's £500,000 in profit, what would have been around, extortionate tax bill for the £500,000 as your net profit in the UAE, your first £80,000 will be tax free, and the remaining balance, no matter whether that's 500,000 or 5 million in profit, will be at 9% corporation tax.
Okay. But here's one. What about the small business exemption?
So that's for the businesses that are doing less than 630,000 in revenue. So if we bring that profit level down, let's just say there is 250,000 in profits, and you have that high rate.
Talking pounds here. Yeah.
Talking pounds.
Yeah.
If someone in their business is doing less than £600,000, that 9% disappears. There is 0%.
And that's revenue, not net profit. Revenue.
Correct.
So that means that if your revenue was, say, 600,000 and your net profit was 550,000, you pay 0?
I believe so. A solid, big, fat 0.
Wow.
So imagine, the thing is, this is the reality for service-based businesses.
So this is why making sure your place of effective management is clearly in the UAE, because, if you've got a very exciting, fast-growing, and very profitable business in the UAE, you could end up getting hit quite hard if you're not aware of this. Yeah,
significantly.
Okay,
significantly, and look at high-margin businesses, right? So service-based businesses, marketing agencies, recruitment consultants. Yeah. Actually, I think our top 3 types of clientele are marketing consultants, recruitment agents, and coaches and consultants that have, again, digital age, so new age of business, creating memberships where headcount is very low.
Yeah.
Recurring revenue is very high, and margins are through the roof. You're looking at 80-90% margins in most instances.
Okay.
Most of your money is going to be classed as a net profit unless you have extremely high expenses for yourself through the business.
And I would say that in terms of where Strive come in, and without sounding too salesy, I don't really think there's many other or anyone else really able to provide this sort of product or support, because we're actually hands-on, getting our hands dirty with helping managing your company in the UAE, alongside making sure everything is recorded, documented, super efficiently, without having any control over your bank access or having rights to it, without taking any shares in the company at the same time, and also giving making the right of removal of a director, as in us, or a member of the team, as to leaving in the hands of the actual client itself as well.
I'm glad you said that, because I think it's true, number one, but also based on conversations I've had where we've spoken about the requirement of a manager within the region. And one of the responses that I got was a client that is now a client who was speaking to someone else about their company being formed and taken care of out in the UAE. and when they asked them about having a manager, they said that they were going to find someone.
Oh,
And
okay.
To me, that terrifies me.
That's
Because
scary. Yeah.
for us, and I think this is important for everyone listening to know as well, the manager that we place in your company is one of our team.
Yeah. Oh, and we introduce them and they meet each other.
Correct. You meet each other face to face. This is not someone...
You discuss things. You actually manage the business together.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is not someone that's not vetted by us. This is not someone that we found on the street in Dubai walking down the road and we thought, do you know what? You'd make a great manager for this business that we have just onboarded.
Yeah.
This is someone who's in the team. This is someone who's got experience with all of our clients. It's someone who lives permanently in the UAE
Very
as well.
valid point.
And I think that is critical because although owner of a company will have the freedom to change managers whenever they want, I would not want someone who I do not know or the team that I've trusted do not know to be placed as the person.
And just to be clear, there doesn't need to be an Emirati national either, right? This just needs to be a resident of Dubai that lives there most of the year. So it could be a UK citizen living in Dubai, which is actually sort of what we have available.
Which is exactly what we have available.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly that.
Great. I think wow. I think for our listeners, if I hope that sounds as though it could make a difference to many entrepreneurs, especially in the UK and Europe. So definitely worth asking everyone to get in touch and discuss it with us. Yeah.
That's it. Yep. Exactly that.
Good. Okay.
Right.
What's next? Ooh.
Let's see. Where are we on?
Should we get into Abu Dhabi?
Let's.
And what's been going on there?
Let's do it. So Abu Dhabi's been an interesting one. So there is a region, a free zone within the UAE known as ADGM, which is the Abu Dhabi Global Market. And there is some really interesting stuff happening there, especially for our clients who are interested in, well, a couple of different reasons. Clients who are interested in setting up a company where they want to specifically look for investors. I think that's huge because what most people might not realize is that companies in the UAE, so a typical free zone in Dubai or Sharjah or Ras Al Khaimah, wherever you set up, don't allow for different class of shareholders. Okay, so in the UK, typically what you have is A shareholders and B shareholders. You've got preference on shares, which can then help you control the growth of a company. If you have dividend payouts, you can control who gets a payout, who doesn't. In the UAE, even in a mainland company, you can't have a class of shares. It's everyone's the same. Yeah. Because ADGM falls under common law and falls under the UK, you can now have a company, especially if you're looking to raise funds and finance and get investors on board, you can have different class of shares. Yeah. That is a game changer.
It's a game changer. Yeah, okay. I mean, like with the ADGM free zone, they obviously operate under UK common law principles, so they actually have their own law courts there. And the nice thing about that is not just being able to have the flexibility on share structures, but also many of the sort of legal documents that are, I would say, sort of global standards are generally accepted in ADGM with a slight tweak or two, just to conform to local rules and policy. Which is great, and that gives confidence to investors, even more confidence to investors, knowing that they can use a convertible note, and it's going to be accepted as a legally binding document inside ADGM. And convertible notes, if people don't know, it's become a popular format to raise seed capital, especially by companies based in Silicon Valley. And you have different types of convertible notes around, like you have a SAFE, you have a KISS. We're not the guys who sort of go into that today. And then the other side of it is even things like a lot of startups and especially tech startups, digital companies, like to incentivize staff with stock options and share options. So again, you can set up an ESOP. People that don't know what that is, that's an employee stock option plan or share option plan, depending on which part of the world you are. And you can actually use that to actually slowly drip shares out to your staff based on a vesting schedule, based on how long they work in the company and so forth. So these are things actually that these mechanics and these instruments aren't really possible in many of the other free zones in the UAE and in mainland companies as well. So that's why we've been sort of trying to educate our community, especially of startups, to think about ADGM as a very viable and serious option to start their business, obviously for obvious reasons of making sure their IP is registered there, the business is registered there. And we know we don't want to keep harping on about tax, but when it comes to a liquidation event or an exit, and a solvent exit of the business, solvent liquidation, you're not going to pay as much tax as you will if you exited your business in the UK, for example, as well. So
absolutely. The second thing around ADGM, which has been really exciting for us, and it's been amazing to see how many clients have actually wanted to learn more about this, is for our clients who are interested in protecting their assets and their wealth in a structure like a foundation.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the time, especially when it comes to investing in property or even investing in businesses or growing a business, a large part of this is about creating a legacy for a lot of our clients. And our clients have families, they've got kids, they've got partners that they want to leave their business to.
Yeah.
And obviously, depending on where those individuals are at that point in time where transference needs to happen, if there is a transference of shares, which is your typical standard structure for companies, it triggers capital gains. So let's just say I've got shares in a company in Dubai, and I want to pass it on to my son who's in the UK. If he chooses to stay in the UK, when I want to pass my shares on to him, he will have to pay capital gains tax in the UK, even though the asset is based in the UAE and was built there and grown there and invested in there and everything. Whereas what you could do now is look at setting up something like a foundation where you can then add your family members to that foundation, and the foundation has the ability to live on past my death in this instance, where there is no transference of shares.
Yep. It's just a set of rules. Yeah.
That's it.
And guide it all. I think that's huge for a lot of people. That's a big one. Yeah.
But that's not all. So there's more. But there's more. So it's been really interesting to see just the extent to which we can take this for our clients, right? Where a foundation can not just own a company outright, but it can actually own assets of any kind all over the world. So including real estate. So I've got a client right now that's looking to buy a property in Germany, but wants it to be held under the foundation in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, okay.
And that is possible. So, there's no limit on the number of assets you could put
And I
into
don't think
this.
it's that expensive either to set up a foundation. Yeah.
And there's more. So,
Wow.
So
You're like the gift that keeps giving today.
so this is it, by the way. This is the last thing. So, setting up a foundation, there's a couple of things around setting up a foundation.
Yeah.
You cannot just set up a foundation in the UAE and have that as the only thing that you set up. To be able to set up a foundation in the UAE, you do need to have a UAE residency. Now, there's basically one of three ways that you could get that. You either got a job with a company in the UAE, which is then sponsoring your residency, which is not the case for our clients.
Yep.
You bought a property and decided to sink £500,000 into a property to get a golden visa, which some people have done, which is fine. Or if you don't want to sink £500,000 into it and you still want to get a residency, open up a company.
Exactly.
Because your company will cost you a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
It will sponsor you for your residency.
Yeah.
The residency will give you the same rights as a golden visa anyway.
Yeah.
Except it just gets renewed every 2 years instead of 10.
Yep. Exactly.
You saved your capital. And now with that residency, you can open up a foundation.
Wow.
And the foundation cost...
I wasn't aware of that. Wow.
There you go. Now you learned something new today as well.
Yeah.
There you go. So the foundation cost, just to go back to that as well, is extremely inexpensive to open up. I believe it comes in just under $1,500 to get everything set up. And then obviously, if you want to make adjustments and amendments, then you'll pay your legal fees accordingly.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Fantastic. That's super interesting. I know we've also supported some operating companies establishing themselves in ADGM as well. It's actually... I would recommend setting up in ADGM if you're looking to target sort of government contracts as well, because remember, central government in the UAE is very much Abu Dhabi, not Dubai. So people sometimes forget this as well. And so we've, for example, helped a couple of cybersecurity companies set up there who are, cybersecurity is a big talking point right now in the UAE because there's so many sort of big IT infrastructure projects going on within the region, and with the emergence of AI, cybersecurity needs to be really top of the agenda for any sort of IT program manager or director of any of these projects. So ADGM can be a great place to set up for those purposes, but also like looking at the more smaller sized entities, like let's say you got your startup ADGM has lots of interesting sort of tech incubators available as well. So if you get a tech license to operate in ADGM, you're probably going to be networking with some really good and interesting individuals, whether it comes to people you want to make part of your team, whether it's potential investors in the future. And so it's quite unique from that perspective as well, and gives a good opportunity to even like your startups as well that are maybe on a slightly tighter budget to kick things off with. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
And then those startups have the freedom and flexibility to make sure that their investors have different class of shares to themselves, etc. So
all of that stuff. I mean,
falls back in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just to reiterate some of the standard stuff, you're still 100% owner of your own business. You don't need a local Emirati national to be a shareholder or owner of the company either. It's also a very impressive physical hub. If you go there, WeWork have got offices in there. Some of the largest financial companies in the world have got offices based there. So this isn't some free zone out in the desert in some far off part of mainland Abu Dhabi. It's a beautiful location right near the heartbeat of Abu Dhabi as well. Super modern. And yeah, it's a very impressive sort of hub in terms of as a physical space as well. So yeah, if those that haven't looked into it before, it's probably worth giving it some attention. Yeah,
definitely.
So Dipesh, look, I think for some of our community, it'd be good to explain, what our service fee includes and why we charge a service fee for what we do.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really good question, and I get asked this with pretty much every single one of the clients that come on board, and I know that a lot of my team experience this as well, right? Yes, we charge a consulting fee, number one, and I actually like telling clients this right from the start, because the way that I think we present ourselves is full transparency. We give our clients everything from day one so that they understand exactly what they're walking into, not just when they form the company, but what they can actually expect for the rest of the year, 2 years, 3 years, a decade, however long they're planning to be.
You mean from a cost perspective?
From a cost perspective in the UAE. Okay. Now, the reason we charge a consulting fee is because we're not just here to set you up a business and a visa and then you don't hear from us again. If you want that kind of service, then honestly speaking, we're probably not the people to work with. What we're here to do is we're business owners. We are here to strategically advise our clients on how they could do better in their businesses in the UAE. And definitely not claiming to be an expert in their area of business, but when it comes to the UAE, we know what works, what doesn't work, what things they can do, what things they can't do. I had a client that, and by the way, we're here to advise not just on a business level, but even on a personal level. I had a client call me up 3 days ago. I'm going to Dubai next week. Where should I get a car to hire so I don't get scammed? We're here to take that call. We don't charge hourly consultation fees to have these conversations. You spoke to someone a couple of weeks ago. I even saw that you reposted it on LinkedIn. One of our clients is looking to employ out in the UAE. We've got an extensive network between us of entrepreneurs, business owners, people who have employed other people who are looking for jobs. And, you shared that post. I saw that. And this is the level of service we're here to provide. So when we charge a service fee, what I want people to recognize is we're not charging a service fee because we're setting up your company and we're getting you a visa. That's just the base level of our service. Everything that we do beyond that point is why we charge a service fee. And I think it's good to note the service fee is a one-off. We're not here to charge you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll extend it, if you don't mind, a bit further on what you said there. I mean, you're normally going to talk to one of the partners in the business, and alongside the partner, there'll be like a senior consultant. So, you're not talking to just somebody who's employed by a formation agency. And, we've been very, very, I suppose, passionate about making sure clients are talking to, senior personnel in the business who are experienced. And then also, what other agencies are going to talk to you about place of effective management. Some of the things you need to keep in mind when it comes to your tax affairs and how to wrap them up in the country you're leaving. We're not tax advisors, we're not certified tax, but we certainly have enough know-how to give you direction and pointers, and then you can go verify and double check things with your chartered tax advisor in your home country. But who else is going to give that conversation? And now, think about the potential saving there, but also more importantly, the safety of not falling into some sort of evasion that issue scenario as well. So this is why, I think Strive is so different, and this is why we're emerging to be probably one of the leading, if not the number one, outfit for especially UK individuals moving across, and pretty soon we're going to be obviously targeting other countries a lot more as well. So that's very exciting. But I think most clients actually that come on board really get it. Once they come through and get why we sort of, I suppose, charge for our time, charge what we do for our time as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is where it becomes quite a unique conversation, which is very different. And I'm saying this from personal experience, by the way. So for a year and a half before I got introduced to you, Pali, I was going through multiple agents in the UAE about setting up my own company out there. And you'd have one conversation, you'd get one piece of information. You'd have a second conversation with a different company, different consultant, and you'd get what feels like a third part of a puzzle of a conversation that didn't quite add up to the first one. And then the next conversation feels a little bit more like that. And then all of a sudden you've got so many conflicting pieces of information. How do you make a serious decision? Because it's not a small decision to go and set up a company in another country that you have no idea about, right?
Exactly.
That's how I came across you. You have been in Dubai since 2015, 16. The reason you moved, I think, is a really powerful story in itself. We've spoken about this.
Yeah, sold a company, earn out, moved across.
Yep.
For because it was just a better economic environment, tax environment during that period of time, as well for myself at the time.
Yep.
Going forward, and I don't want to sort of poke fun at some of our competitors, but I mean, we've done some mystery shopping. We all do mystery shopping with each other from time to time just to see what's going on out there. But every time sort of we ask, do you happen to know the rate of VAT in the UK? We've never had the right answer.
Yeah.
When we ask the rate of corp tax in the UK, we've never had the right answer. No, most people don't know, and unfortunately, we're very much personal touch, high touch. A lot of the other sort of outfits out there, they incentivize their staff by giving them targets and give them bonuses on how many companies they close every month. So sometimes they don't quite pitch the right product. For that reason, because they'll pitch a product which gives them the best commission rates internally, and also they're simply not experienced business owners, they're employees. Whereas everyone that you speak to as a consultant in Strive has all operated and run businesses in the UK and in Dubai.
Yeah. Exactly that. Going further on to that point as well, I've got two scenarios where I'll give you one of them. Just last week, spoke to someone who got offered a free zone company. Now, it's pretty standard. And then I got to speaking to him a little bit more in depth about the company, what they actually do, what they're looking to do out in the UAE. And I think this is where people get lost in translation very easily. He works on buildings, so skyscrapers, and he does cladding on roofings and the external of buildings, right? To be able to do any kind of activity like that, you need to be able to have a mainland license so that you can then work on mainland projects.
Yes.
He was offered a free zone way out and was told that that would be everything that he needs to be able to set up in the UAE. And I just had that honest conversation. I was like, look, you can go ahead and set up that company, but I can just tell you now, please don't expect any of your clients to say yes to giving you a contract because you do not have the right setup to be able to provide that service.
I've had these sort of conversations as well. I've come across situations like this where someone's been offered a free zone company when it's not going to suit their operations and their in terms of operations they're going to be undertaking inside the UAE itself. So, one thing I want to make clear to everybody, like free zones, they're not government agencies. These are profit-making locations, okay? So all the free zones are keen to get as many companies to register with them as possible. We obviously work with free zones that we feel are right for the client. And there's many a time where we'll recommend mainland companies, and me and you both know this, so much more work and so much more rigorous effort, even for us, and the manpower involved in some of these mainland setups, especially when they're more complicated business activities, are a lot harder. But we always try to offer what's best for the client long term, right? So it's definitely something that people should be mindful of when they're going around talking to people about what to do and how to set up.
Completely agree. Cool.
That's what strives the best.
I was going to say, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were like, I've got a couple of conversations lined up. I was like, amazing.
Yeah.
You probably won't need them after this. And at the end of the call, he turned around himself.
I mean, look, one thing I'm going to, we get this message out to everyone listening, right? Just make sure you talk to us. You don't have to work with us. And even if you go elsewhere, we'll probably still be a sounding board for you in terms of any decisions you do decide to undertake. But you should always try to talk to us before embarking on anything. At least we can give you some, ideas on how to steer, your journey, especially the start of your journey to Dubai. Yeah.
Completely agree.
Cool. Good.
Awesome.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks.
Cheers.